Hi there. We're halfway through the mystery quilt already. I can't believe it. So today we're going to be doing clue 5, and before we get to that one, I want to revisit what we did in clue 1 for just a minute, because next month we will be working with the units that you did in clue 1, and I want to make sure you have them right before we go. As you recall, clue number 1 used 2 templates, E and F, and then the reverse, and we made 2 units, one like this and one that is the reverse. Now you will notice on this template, let me get it really close so you can see, you'll see this little space right in here between these 2 dots. That's not an accident, it's not a mistake, that is part of the design. So I want to make sure that you have those lined up and that your dots are in the right place in preparation for next month. So I like to make what I call a checking template, and you do this by putting these together as though they were the pieces that we've sewn. So I'm going to match up the dots down in this corner here, go up here, and you can see that dot. So what it does, this template has a portion of that line, and this next template has a little bit of an extension. So we need this coming up here and that slight jag to the right. So what I'm going to do is take some Scotch tape, and I'm going to just lay it down along there, and I'll do it in another spot. A little bit of tape on this other end as well. So that's got those going together as though they were sewn. Now I'm going to put it on top of this piece that we sewed. And you can see how it fits. I've cut the end off. Those really long skinny points, a lot of times you can just cut that end off, which I have done on my sewn piece. Then for the opposite piece, you'll bring that in. Let's turn it this way so we... And you see how I have that little jog again. I'm going to turn the template this time upside down. I'm going to line it up. So this time it's important you do your dots. Now that I've turned this over, they're going to go, when we sew that little seam the next time, you're going to start at this dot at the bottom and go to the dot at the top. The one in the middle is only where we join those 2 pieces. So this is how your pieces have to look for next time. I just wanted to make sure that you checked it, because you'd hate to get all done and go, well, now what's wrong? I must have sewn it wrong, just to make you aware of that. This probably of the whole quilt is the most technically difficult part, and it's not that difficult. So I just wanted you to be prepared. And let me get ready now for the clue for this month. So now we're ready to start clue 5, and I have to say maybe I tricked you just a little bit. Maybe not tricked, but remember clue 3 when you had to do the 6 foundations, and some of you, I heard this group groan where you go, oh, I hate foundation piecing. But I told you and gave you templates. You can do it by hand as well if you like. So I didn't want to tell you that we didn't have just 6 to do. We really have 12. So that's your task this month, is to do 12 more. But these are the reverse of what we did the first time. So one reason I split them up was so you wouldn't have to be tasked with so much work all in one time. And the second reason was it sometimes can get pretty confusing if you're doing a regular and a reverse. I want to show you some trouble that I got into when I was making this quilt. Of course, I'm trying to get it done quickly, and I was doing both sets of foundation. Well, I did some on foundation piecing, some by hand, but I was doing both sets of the hand sewing at the same time. I had one bag labeled regular and one bag labeled reverse, so that I would keep the pieces straight. Somewhere along the line they got mixed up. And this is the one that I was ready, stacking everything all together, and I went, well, is this a regular or is it a reverse? Because here's these pieces coming together here, and you see that's not ending up at the same spot there. And I thought, okay, well, this must be the reverse, because if I turn it over this way, so then I got the other piece, and I'm lining it up, and I'm going, well, that doesn't work either. So it took me a little bit of time to try to figure out, okay, you know, what's wrong here. What was wrong was that I sewed the wrong piece here, you know, this, whichever one this is, whether it's regular or reverse. I should have sewn it like this. You see, this is the reverse piece. So it should have gone like this and like this. And so that piece wouldn't have been there. So obviously I put the wrong pieces on. So I had to take them off. I did that on 3 pieces. So I just must have had my nice little stack there. I'm sewing them on. So I had to take those apart and put the correct one on. I just got my 2 bags, reverse and regular, mixed up. That's why, you know, one of the reasons why I had you doing these in 2 separate stages, the first 6 at one point and a little down the line the next 6. You'll see these 2 when they come together. Not that they are necessarily going to go together in the quilt, mind you, but that one is the reverse of the other. So this month we are doing the reverse. You will notice on the template itself, in one corner, you've got it says reverse foundation, but it's fairly small. It's not easily to see. The other one has in the corner regular foundation, so at least you know which is which, and you'll when you finish them, you'll stack one and one together. Last month I told you about the Carol Doak foundation paper and how it really works nicely to tear away from your piecing after you've done the paper piecing. You are not to remove the paper till later on, I will tell you, but I'm going to do a little bit of removal here just to show you the difference between the 2 papers. Also, I realized as I did the first 6 on copy paper and the reverse ones on Carol Doak paper, that the slightly different color makes it easier when you're rearranging these units. Because actually there's going to be quite a design element coming up in one of the next clues, not the next one, but the one after that, in terms of how you put these pieces together, because there's several possibilities and you get to choose which one you want. So there it's going to be important that you have the paper in still and that you can easily see which one is the regular and which one is the reversed. That said, if you are doing hand piecing, you have your template sheets that you either make your own templates from the pattern that's in your downloaded material, or you've purchased from us the templates for each of the foundation pieces that you do. So for the reverse, all you need to do is use the same exact templates, just turn them upside down and use the reverse side, and it's easy, certainly easy enough to see that that is the reverse side of the template. When you are hand piecing, and if you decide to do a second one of these quilts, if you really like it and want to try one of the other variations, it's quite an exercise and it's a lot of fun. So if you're doing it again, you'll already have the downloaded materials. You're going to already know that you have to do 6 of one and 6 that are reversed. So here's where it can get really confusing, and I would advise you to do all of one first, kind of assembly line like we talked about. And the easiest thing is to get all your fabrics, I find, and line them up in order, fabric 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. And put actually numbers on them so that you know as you get to that spot on the foundation, you know I need to pick up fabric number 2 next, and then that's going to go here, and so forth. The foundation this time is exactly the same as the last time. I've got a couple of little hints. Remember when we were working just a couple of minutes ago on this template and I had you tape them together for the checking template? Well, I just want to point out the fact on this that when I showed you in previous clues how to tape these together, I had you putting a piece, because this is in 2 pieces on your paper, and a lot of the templates are like that. So you butt the edges together, you put a piece of tape on this side, and you put a piece of tape on this side, and then that holds them, and it's like a regular template. It works great. So as I was doing the reverse foundations, and I had to print these out. As I say, I used the Carol Doak foundation paper this time, but I had 2 pieces to splice onto each other. And so I put the piece of tape on this side, and then just to reinforce it, I put the piece of tape on this side. That's the wrong thing to do, because I bet you can guess, because you probably had it happen to you, but this is the first time I had it happen to me. When I went to iron the piece after I sewed the first piece on, my iron melted the tape. So don't do that mistake. On the templates, it's fine. You know, put the tape on 2 sides, but don't put it on 2 sides of your foundation piecing. All right, that said, and you're going to sew the pieces, whether it's by hand or by machine. By hand, you're going to use the reverse side of these templates. By machine, you just make your 6 foundations, but make sure they're the ones that say reverse on it, and you just put them in the same order as you did the first time. So just to reiterate, so that you won't run into melting the tape, you make sure you tape it on the printed side, because that's the side that you're going to be sewing on the lines, but the fabric is going to be on the back, so that's what you're going to be doing when you're printing. Now, I told you, and you know, that you're not supposed to remove the paper yet, and some of you who are new to foundation piecing might want to know why is that. Well, it's because you get a lot of bias edges around the edges of these pieces, and you can have some stretch. So it's nice to just keep it on there until you have everything sewn around the piece. So once this is enclosed with other fabrics having been sewn to it, then you're ready to take the paper out. But since we have a little extra time this month, I'm going to show you just a couple of tricks for taking it out, and I will demonstrate with both the Carol Doak paper and also the just the copy paper that I used for the first round, so you can decide which you like the best. So even though you're not supposed to tear the paper out yet, I'm going to actually take some pieces from these just so you can see a couple of the tricks. One thing some people like to do is to give a little tug to the paper. You can see how it kind of came apart at this seam. That works, but you're also, you know, maybe distorting the block a little bit. So there's other methods that might be a little better, and probably one of the best. Well, I'm just going to give a tug on this one. You see, the Carol Doak paper tears a lot easier if you do want to do this tug. It just sort of loosens some of the seams just a little bit. So this is a lot harder than the Carol Doak paper. Okay, so I'm going to show you on both types of paper, the Carol Doak or the copy paper, another way that you can do this other than just stretching and distorting the blocks. If you take a seam ripper and you just use the back side on a hard surface and then the back side and just run this along, you see it all just kind of, and then that'll kind of loosen the paper along the seam and you can tear it out. Now I think it goes a lot faster here on the Carol Doak paper because it tears much more easier. So you rub this along the seam. So just having that surface, hard surface, and then the seam ripper, that paper is going to just come right out a lot easier. Now, I don't want to take this completely out because it's not finished yet, but I just wanted to show you a couple of these little tricks. Okay, so once you've started tearing this paper out, you're going to find all these little bits and pieces that it's hard sometimes to get your fingers in. If you have a pair of tweezers, you can just grab it and pull that out with the tweezers if you can get underneath that paper. And these actually are kind of cool if you have really bad light that you're working with or something, that they actually have a light on them. And it makes it even easier just to sort of go in there and pull some of those pieces out. So it's a little tedious. This is why a lot of people don't like the foundation piecing, but you can always just do it as mindless work. You know, if you're, turn on one of my videos and listen to it while you're just sitting there tearing paper out. But wait until you're all done. With the quilt, and then we'll take that out. And so you can do a combination of perhaps stretching it a little bit along the seam and tearing it, and then running. It doesn't necessarily have to be a seam ripper. You could use a pair of scissors, like these little scissors along the edge. But the seam ripper seems to work pretty good. And just work at pulling those out. You want to try to get most of them out, but if you don't get them all out, the paper will probably kind of melt or whatever, or just dissolve when you wash it. And it's going to be inside the quilt anyway, but just work at getting as many of those out as possible. You can see here on the one with the regular pieces, let me run. I think the seam ripper works a little better. But I do find the regular copy paper is pretty heavy, so you do whichever is going to work the best for you. So not a lot of new instruction this time, but a little bit to keep you busy while you do those foundations and fix up those units that we made in Clue 1. And next month we will be working with borders. So we'll look forward to seeing you then.